So don't miss next week's presentation, Ilona de Borhegi. Okay, now this week's presentation. Now this is a little different. And so it gives me great pleasure. You already know Steve Balfour, president of LCS, and he's accompanied today by Luis Pacheco, who is the executive director of LCS. And so they're going to be addressing questions that they have been asked over and over again. All the time they get asked the same question. So first, they're going to address those issues belonging to those questions. Then afterwards, you have an opportunity to ask whatever you like. Okay, so I'll be coming down with a mic, and you can ask either of them, both of them, whatever you wish. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Steve and Luis.
Here we go. Let's see. Can you hear that okay? There we go. Is that fine back there? Oh, okay. So I'd like to give a little background of how we get to where we are today. And part of that actually goes back pre-COVID. Prior to COVID, you'll remember the Cinco Dias en Casa right at the very beginning, right? I think we all remember that. And actually, this microphone's a little bit breaking up here. You'll also may remember that in the beginning there, we had scheduled our annual general meeting, which is usually the third week of March each year. And it was about 2 days before the 2 days before the annual general meeting that they announced the Cinco Dias en Casa. So we had to cancel or postpone rather, the annual general meeting, which ended up taking place in August. I'm actually going to use this. How's that? Is that a little bit better there? All right, all right. There we go. And so we started planning for our annual general meeting, and we really planned on kicking things off. I see some hands going a little bit down. Is that better? Yep. Is that the people in the back? Gazebo here? Okay, yep, okay, perfect. Sorry about that. So when we started planning for our annual general meeting, we had a lot of things in mind. One is we were going to be announcing a new computer system for tracking our point of sale activities in the office, which I think that would have helped tremendously with the customer service in the office. Part of the challenge in that front office is the computers that we have on campus here, the hardware, don't operate anything over Windows 10. So if you know a bit about computers, you'll know that Microsoft doesn't even support Windows 10 anymore. 7, sorry. And so it's Windows 7. So it's really antique equipment and challenging. Things constantly go down. And in the past, the nature of our organization, we're a membership organization, depend upon membership income. Money's always been tight. I'm sure most of you all know Terry Vidal, who was like a MacGyver. He was able to hold things together with duct tape and cable ties and what have you. But one of the things that happened back then is the software that we used on those antiquated computers was based upon what we could get for free. So the system we use still to today is called Library Vision, and Library Vision won't even support it with us anymore. They said they don't want to be dealing with us anymore. And we tried to take Library Vision, which is about managing a library, and squeeze everything into it. Our point of sale system, membership system, our donor relations, and so on and so forth. So it was really a crazy environment, and made it very difficult on the volunteers in the office and volunteers elsewhere in our program. So that was going to be one of our big announcements at that AGM. Another big announcement, we had just started the work on the veranda for the Neil James House. We hold the Neil James House and the gazebo here, the Neil James tree, other parts, as very sacred to Lake Chapala Society. And so the Neil James veranda, the little sitting area over here, the roof above it had a couple of big cracks in it. And I'm not a builder, I'm not an engineer, but somebody once told me if you can fit a credit card into a crack, you should pay attention to the crack. Well, I could fit my wallet into that crack, okay? So that was not a good thing. Then we brought in, thanks to Michael Pumphrey, a very good friend of ours, we brought in a a local contractor asked him to take a look at it. He put a ladder up to the veranda, the roof, put 1 foot on the roof, and a whole chunk below collapsed. So he said that was within a month or two of just collapsing on top of people. And that's where we had our bridge games. Brian, right? You remember being over there. And Brian's another one of our board members, as well as Rick Chase, who's here today. Thank you for joining us from the board. But, so that was a serious situation right as COVID was starting to come about. And it urgently needed repairs so that we didn't cause major liability issues, so on and so forth. So we replaced the roof of that veranda. We started doing some of the moisture problems inside the walls of the Neil James house, dealing with that, fixing those things up. There's a lot of fungus and mold and what have you growing there, so we wanted to clean that all up. So we started doing a lot of things on our campus just before what would have been a great annual general meeting. And also, one other thing got thrown at us, which is the Molinari house, the one house next to the Neil James house. It's kind of the one house on our property that we don't own, okay? The 3 sides of it border our property, and then there's the street side, of course, of it. And John Molinari, who had died January of last year, so it would have been a couple months before our AGM. So at our annual general meeting, we were going to announce that we were looking for donors to be able to buy that house. One of the things we want to use that house for is bringing in some of the programs that take place up at the Wilkes Center. Right now, it seems odd to me that programs oriented to the local Mexican community are 3 blocks away. They're not good enough to be here on our campus. That just didn't make sense to me. So we wanted to start moving some programs over here, possibly even the Spanish language library, which is used in a very different way than our library here is used. And so it needs to be kept apart. But so we were looking at that. So we had a lot of things in the work, a lot of things we were going to announce at that annual general meeting, and then, bam, Cinco Dias en Casa came along. We all stayed home thinking that Cinco Dias en Casa was going to be over in a week, right? And what a long week that's been, huh? That's the longest 5 days of my life. And so for the past, about 15 months that we've been dealing with this craziness now, it's been really challenging. And one thing that we noticed last year was that our membership fees really only cover for housekeeping, gardeners, and some of our maintenance costs. So all the other costs involved in operating this campus are not covered by membership fees. And when we were all stuck at home, we had to end our bus trips. We had to end the 8 annual events that we knew that everybody loves, the Mariachi Festival, the Blues Festival, the tequila tasting, and one of my favorite, and the wine tasting and some of the other things that take place on campus, things that are oriented towards having 300 or 400 people attend it. That was 47% of our income there, and it just totally evaporated. Our program income, so when you pay for a class like the wonderful pottery class that Jennifer up there and her sidekick, Hunter, over there, who's also a board member, that they put on, they've been doing some great things lately with. But, the programs that charge a fee, so a fee for service, those we were not able to do for a good number of months. So really our income had dried up in some very key areas. We had long discussions, do we lay off some of our staff? That was certainly something that we had to look at seriously. Since our staff are Mexican employees that support families and what have you, we thought that was not a good idea to do. We know that our members dearly care about our employees, and so we wanted to keep them employed. And then the other equation, of course, of that is that we need them here to maintain the gardens. If we just closed down for these 12 or 15 months and had no staff doing housekeeping and gardening, imagine what this place would look like today. So we kept them going, and that was wonderful. It meant a great deal to their family. The employees became more endeared to LCS because of our commitment to them. They wanted to match their commitment back and have done a great job. If you've walked through the campus lately, they're really doing a great job at maintaining it. And so those are some of the things we were dealing with. But we were still short a tremendous amount of money. Now, here's where we ended last year. Last year, we ended the year about 250,000 pesos in the hole. That's how the year ended. That was after I did very aggressive sort of appeals, and email appeals on a monthly basis to people, and we brought in 2.2 million pesos. So imagine, that's something that's never been done before, okay? So, but my whole background, I work for the American Cancer Society, the Alzheimer's Association, and that's my area of being a master is in the area of fundraising and being pretty aggressive at it, and that's what we had to do, that's what it took. Imagine if last year, if we didn't bring in that 2.2 million pesos and still had the 250,000 peso loss, that from what our finance team, and we have a great audit team, we have a great finance team that really kept track of the numbers by the minute last year. And there was a long period of time where we felt somewhere between June and September, we would either need to sell off some of our property or close altogether and possibly sell off all of our property. We had an appraiser come in and take a look at some of our property. We had a couple of investors that came in and took a look. And it was that tough at times. But we were able to get it through. And the only way we got through was the applause really goes to all of you who are our members, our donors, our supporters, the people that made it possible. So we thank you for that. And that's why we're here today, looking good. We've added in the concerts, which now are supplementing some of the income as well. The concerts so far, the concerts we've done so far, I can't remember how many, it's like about 9 concerts so far, have done over 850,000 pesos worth of income from the concerts. So those are being very well supported, and we thank everybody for that. We'll keep them going as long as people keep on coming. Also, artists are really hurting in this through these economic times. So those are some of the things that we've had going on, sort of pre-COVID, going into COVID. And another situation that arose was that our membership numbers went down. Now there's several people in town will try to suggest why our numbers went down, but it probably isn't some of those things that people are suggesting. Really, when we analyze the numbers, and we've looked very closely at them, Mexico, as we all know and love, is really sort of a cash basis environment. Most people use cash to pay for everything. Likewise, most of our membership fees come in by cash. People walking into the office and paying their membership. Well, if the office was closed for much of the year, people weren't coming in. The other equation, of course, is that a lot of people, especially our Canadian friends, went back to Canada where they had their health care there in case something went wrong. People went back to the US for Medicare or other insurance they might have there. So a lot of people sort of drifted away because of COVID and went back to an environment where they felt they'd have more support system around them. So they weren't here to walk into the office and pay their membership. So our membership did go from 2,800 members down to about a little less than 1,800 members, about 1,700 members. And right now we're seeing a very gradual increase, but this is our slow time of the year. So we're hopeful, and we're not only hopeful, but we're working towards bringing more people in, doing community outreach efforts, getting involved in the community, such as this Cruz Roja event that we're doing and some other things we're working on. And we're hoping to build up membership. I feel confident that will happen. But I think it's going to be January or February before we see our membership numbers bounce back. And some of the other things we've had going on is we did with the board of directors, which are a very committed group of members, we did a board challenge. So I challenged every board member to give or get $1,000 over these next 12 months. And so far we have about 10 board members, I think, and we have at least 6 board members that have reached or surpassed that challenge, and some passed it by quite a bit. So that's been a tremendous effort. We also had a retreat recently with our board members to discuss what are our challenges, how can we move things forward. And we sort of looked at our board committee structure, and we sort of came up with an alternate structure from now until the next AGM, which will be March of next year. So we put tremendous focus. We've developed, thanks to Larry Barnhart on our board, we've developed a Mexican Advisory Council. And Yoli, who's on our board, also president of Red Cross, she is going to be chairing that Mexican Advisory Council, and that's made up of members from the Mexican community. Diana Ayala, who's on our staff, has been very helpful in putting that together along with Alfredo. We also face the fact that we really need a board development committee. In the past, I don't know if you've heard the old expression that can you fog a mirror? So if you breathe on a mirror and you fog it, you were qualified to be on our board of directors. And that's how we've sort of recruited people before. It's whose arm can we twist and ask them to come on. The board is really focusing on what are the skill sets we need in order to be successful in the future. We have a good number of finance people. We have a tremendous number of people that are wonderful, generous, giving people that want to support the community, care about our program, so on and so forth. But we identified some of our weaknesses. And so Hunter Johnson, who's also sitting back there, he's our board member, and he's agreed to chair that committee to really work on board development and start recruiting board members based upon what the skills are that we're missing. The biggest skill we need is fundraising and nonprofit management. Those are two of the skills that we really need, so we're focusing there. The position of vice president is open, the position of chair of the program committee is open. We have about, I think, 3 or 4 openings on our board, and we want to make sure we fill them with the best possible candidates. We also agreed to set up a marketing committee, an IT committee, membership committee, and a fundraising committee. So for those that aren't as familiar with nonprofits, so the way boards work is people keep on asking, when's the board meeting? Can I come to the board? The board meetings are the 3rd Thursday of every single month, have been for 10 years, so you can always come to a board meeting. We'd love to have you come, but that's not where the work happens, okay? That's really where the committees report back what they're doing. The real work of a board of directors for a nonprofit is at the committee level. So if you want to join a committee, we have plenty of openings on the committees. And if you have a skill that you can bring to one of those committees, we'd love to talk to you, and Hunter would, myself or Luis would love to sit down with you and discuss it in detail. So those are some of the things we've had going on. But of course, one of the biggest and greatest things that we had going on this year was on February 1st, we hired an absolutely wonderful executive director. We did a search for about 5 months. Do you know who that is? So we did about a 3 to 5 month search. I think we started, we started in September 1st and went through February, whatever that is. And we worked with a search firm up in Guadalajara, as well as our local outreach efforts. And for those, not familiar with the nonprofit world as much, in the United States, there's 1.5 million nonprofits, okay? In the United States and Canada and other places, the philanthropic environment is very developed and very sophisticated, and all kinds of seminars and associations and conferences and educational opportunities and so on and so forth. Mexico is not advanced in the area of philanthropy. And most philanthropic giving in Mexico, from what I've seen over the decades, has really been through the church and a couple of other entities, really focused though. And there hasn't been a lot of nonprofits doing things. And so it's a struggle trying to find experienced people and trying to build a nonprofit here. In the United States, there's an organization called the Association for Fundraising Professionals, which I happen to know the president of that organization, right? And so they're really working in Guadalajara to really develop that organization. They're attending some of the conferences in the United States and getting their materials and so on and so forth. So that's a great thing. But so it was quite a challenge trying to find somebody that had all the experience that we were looking for. Because if you think about it, what do we have here? It's kind of like a hotel, and there's a lot of maintenance that has to be done. There's customer service, certainly, that has to be done. There's space that we rent out. There's meeting spaces. There's activities going on. It's also sort of, in some capacity, there's a senior care facility, and it's also a community organizing position. It's a fundraising. There's so many different skills that go into being the executive director of the organization. And so I think we're most fortunate, after a long search, to find the very best possible candidate here in the Jalisco area to take on this job. And so I'm honored to introduce my good friend, Luis Pacheco.
That's too much. Okay, so thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for having me today to speak and to share a little bit with you. We would have a lot of things to talk, so I'll start addressing some of the most important questions that I've been asked since I got to LCS. And probably the one that I've heard the most is, what the hell are you doing here? How do you got here? Do you live in Chapala? So I'll just give you a little bit about my background, what I do, how I got here, and why I'm so excited to be here. And I feel very, very honored and very, very fortunate to be here, sharing with you the project, sharing my life, and sharing a vision of what we want to do in LCS. Well, I am Luis Francisco Pacheco. Soy mexicano. I am 45 years old, married, have 2 beautiful kids. Iñaki, he's 9 years old. Aitana, she's 4. And they've been driving us crazy doing homeschooling for the past 15 months. Big part of my life I've devoted to education in very different aspects. I was born and raised in Mexico City. First I studied chemical engineering, then I left. I dropped out from college 6 months before I graduated. My dad hasn't recovered from that one. Well, but I was young, I was eager to make changes, so I took my things, I left, and probably I've devoted my past 25 years to nonprofit organizations in Mexico in very diverse needs. That time I went straight to Chiapas, went up to the mountains. We were talking about the 90s, so it was everything about indigenous communities. I spent there a lot of years. So then I worked with the Jesuits. I became a Jesuit for 10 years, then I left, got married. And I worked in very different parts in Mexico in nonprofits. Probably the most outstanding were in the indigenous communities, Oaxaca, Chiapas. I worked in Puebla and Mexico City on neighborhoods, on the suburbs, very aggressive communities. I worked there with young gangs for about 5 years in violent environments. And after that, I devoted like about 10 years of my life to a nonprofit that was addressing human rights issues, especially related with HIV and AIDS, which was something that was appearing in Mexico and was not being attended by anyone. So I've always kind of looked for opportunities to learn and transform and to challenge myself into doing something for the community in very different ways. So that's what's kind of, and my past 15 years I was at ITESO, I was working at education in the university. Well, I went to school. After chemical engineering, I finished up. I realized I had to do that, and then I studied philosophy, I studied social science. I got a master's degree and a PhD in Madrid. I spent some time there studying philosophy, because I kind of realized that philosophy was very important for me to try to understand the world, try to make an interpretation of the world so I could propose things to the world. So I'm not, tell you the truth, I love academics, but I'm not a pure academic. I prefer to learn to put it in action. That's what kind of I've been doing. And that's what kind of what I was doing in the university. I was in charge of many of the social programs and also of the postgraduate programs, especially because it was trying to be like more active and professional activity. I still teach. I work with an indigenous university in Oaxaca. It's called Instituto Intercultural Ayuc, and it's one of the most wonderful educational programs I've found in Mexico because it's pure indigenous. They have 32 different ethnics participating, and it's a ground-based university that has a very, very special idea of what education is and how to construct it. So it's an amazing project. I hope someday I can take you or I can bring them so they'll talk to you about it because it's something that's worth listening to. So that's kind of who I am, and I got here because a very good friend of ours, after COVID broke out, I was working with Oaxaca. I was working to help them develop their development office because that's one of the biggest challenges, can you imagine, for an indigenous community trying to bring up a university. So they have 150 students, and they are all fully supported. So I was helping them with development. So I've been working in development office for a long time. When I heard about LCS, I just kind of figured out I'll give it a look, and I kind of got in love with what I found. It was a new challenge for me. It's a different challenge of what I've done because of this specific kind of place this is, but not what I realized I've been done. And that has to do with the second question, and I think first I heard from the 9 members of the board when I was getting interviewed, and then I've heard a lot later. So why stay at LCS? Why come to LCS if you could be in some other places? Why can you start bringing up a bigger career, probably in money terms, about things like that? I said, because I love the challenge. I've always been on the nonprofit sector. My life has always been devoted to try to find places where I can service and make service and do community programs. And I think LCS is going through an amazing transformation. I find honesty, I have found a lot of honesty in the board members when they interview me and offer me to be here, and then I've come to realize that with community. And I'll just try to put it this way. What I found at LCS is an open and honest conviction of trying to have and to make for others a better way of living. And that's outstanding for me, and that's worth working for it. So it is a big challenge what we need to do at LCS and what we want to do at LCS. But I feel comfortable with it, and I'm really starting to enjoy it and getting to know everyone, and finding out that there are so many amazing things that we can do together if we put our heart into it. So that's how I got to LCS. That's a little bit of who I am. We can talk a lot about them. There are a lot of great moments and funny moments about that. But probably that's what I want to put as a background to start talking about what I'll try to say what I see that LCS can start becoming to be, and what I want it to become to be with you. The first is LCS. It's a great, diverse, complex, rich, multicultural community of communities. That'll be kind of the main core great ideas that I'll put out front, and I'll try to go through them. The first of it, it's diverse because here we are in a very diverse community. None of you have the same background. And probably in other lives, in other spaces, wouldn't have ever met. We have people that come from Canada all the way to Texas, and with many different professions, many different activities. So what's interesting, if we start realizing what's got you here, and if I have to put it out as a bottom line, is because you are looking for a better life, a good life. And that'll be addressed in many ways. What you understand for good life, each one of you probably will be different. But that's something we have in common. And that gives us a very strong root from where to the part to start building things together. Because we have something in common. And I think that's the same that we find with the Mexican community, which we cannot say it's a Mexican community, it's a community of communities. Mexicans, we are not all alike, although we might seem. We have things in common, but even in my country, it's a very diverse cultural country. So living in Lakeside, we're talking about many communities living together. It's not the same culture that the frac owners have, that the town people have, people that have lived all their lives here and have gone out of the Lakeside, people that have gone out, migrate. Many of them have migrated to the United States and then return and make a life here. That's a very different issue. That's a very different mindsetting they're coming with. So I think that the first thing that we have to address, realize, feel comfortable, and celebrate is that we are a very complex, diverse community of communities. You know, we have many different languages going through here. You know, we all just got a joke on an accent. We can make a lot of jokes with Mexican accents. No, that's part of it. Even if we are all speaking in English, probably we are not understanding the same, and we were not brought up the same with the same kind of English. No? So you can imagine that's the same with Spanish. And when you have to translate, you'll see me still sometimes going slow because, for example, I haven't changed my cheek to being on my American mood. I still translate. I realize that in my internal process, I'm still thinking in Spanish and translating. So that's why I still don't grab the right word or don't grab the right concept. I use that as an example of kind of what's the great challenge that we have in front. It's how can we start reaching out, putting what we have in common, and building from there. Because that's what's going to get us moving forward and reopening LCS and going back to more than 100 programs that we're running in campus, that we want them running as fast as we can, but also start creating new programs and new possibilities that will address all the needs that all those diverse communities have. Because, you know, people are here sometimes in LCS, and they're even living different moments. It's not the same if you got into town 15 years ago, or if you got into town 15 days ago. You're going to be looking from LCS for different things. You're going to want to talk about different things. You know, probably the ones that have been here for 15 years, you know more than I do from Lakeside at this point, probably. No, but the ones that only have, like me, that have been here for 3 months, we are expecting different things to be heard, to be talked about. We still are, we want to know where we can go have a good meal, where we can buy our stuff, how this water works, but people that have been here for 50 years will have very different interests. So what I'm trying to point out with diversity is that's, I think, the most enriching possibility that we have as a community right now. Because we have great talent. What I can see is people that have devoted their lives for 30, 40 years to very diverse and very interesting careers that now they are willing to put out at service. And on the other way, many of you, exactly what you want to do is to keep doing what you did all your life. You know, what I also am finding is you can find someone that had a 40-year great career on banking, but the only thing that they want to do now is teach photography. So that's also interesting because people have projects, have very personal, deep-rooted personal projects that want to become a reality. And that's probably our greatest asset. That's why LCS is being so successful as being a volunteer. And we want to keep being a highly volunteer-driven organization. Because LCS is about people, it's about the community, it's about doing their dreams, no matter where they come from, when they get here, and how much time they're going to be with us. So, if you don't fall in that, and you don't see that as a challenge, then you're losing your time. So that's why I'm here, that's why I'm so excited to be given an opportunity to be here at the LCS and to start creating projects. From there, that's what I see. We gotta keep coming up with activities. We have to reopen many of the activities that were very meaningful for our members, because there are activities that came out from the community. No, we have yoga classes and Reiki and Tai Chi, and we play games and we play Scrabble, and we have discussion groups, and we have films, and we have photography and drawing and arts and writing. And what's great is because they are personal projects. It's people wanting to go through that, learn through that, express themselves, find meaning for their time here with those kind of activities. You know? And we also have put in great programs. LCS has great educational programs, teaching language, which it's probably one of our priorities right now, because I think it's one of our most needed process in trying to reach out really between communities. We need to learn to communicate. So I would say that one of the best things you can do when you get here is try to learn at least some ways to communicate with others that already live here. And that will probably be a change, a game change setup for life. You know? And we have very new projects. We have when I found out that we had a very new project. It was very ambitious. It was very attractive. Well, then we got the 5 days at home, no? 5 días en casa, which have become 15 months. Yes. In which we are reorganizing all educational programs and trying to make it as a model, imagine like a training and model educational programs in which what we are trying to give is everyone what they need at the different moments. So if you're a newcomer, you'll have all the programs and all settings that you need to learn to live in Lakeside, to learn to be able to take care of your life in Lakeside the best way possible. But if you have already been here for a time, you will need different things to attend. And that's what we are trying to do, to come up with a plan in which we are developing different moments, different programs that will go and attend different needs. So yes, we gotta be an LCS that welcomes people, that supports people, that are a reference for them to start living a good and a better life if they decide to stay here or just to visit us every year. But we also have then to start addressing the problems that this community already has had and will get better and are not getting better from as many leaders. You know? We are all struggling with water, we are all struggling with garbage, we are all struggling with violence, we are all struggling. So also LCS has to start coming up with projects that will address those kinds of problems and those kinds of challenges. And we will be doing it in very different ways, because I also understand that not everyone wants to get involved the same way. But what I've come to realize is that everyone wants to get involved in something. And that's what LCS should be, a place where everyone can find something to do to create a better life while they are staying at Lakeside. So yes, we have to keep improving our services. Our library, our English library is one of the biggest English libraries in Latin America. So we have to keep it, we have to conserve it, we have to make it better, we have to get it out of Windows 7. You know, we all want to go back on bus trips. No, sure the hell I want. No. I got a little advantage. I live in Guadalajara, I still live in Guadalajara. My family is still there. And probably will be there because my wife is going through health issues. So we are staying there because it's closer to the medical attention that she requires. And my kids are still going to school there. So I commute every day, but I live like about 3 blocks away from Costco. So what can I tell you guys? But we really need to get all those bus trips and all those activities going out. But our priority also, as being executive director, I am responsible for the health of everyone, and I'm responsible for the community. So we are doing it as fast as we can, but as responsible as we can. That means we have to compel with bylaws, with Mexican bylaws. Anyone that has lived here for more than 6 months, you understand that's very complex because you never know what's really happening in Mexico and what should be observing and what not. So yeah, we can have open casinos, but we at LCS by bylaws cannot still have meetings on closed spaces. That's crazy, but that's how it is because the kind of organization that we are, we still have many restrictions that we still have to observe and guarantee. So I know the United States is much ahead and many other countries have vaccination, so they're starting to use masks. We cannot do that right now because not only for our members, thank God our members are starting to get their vaccines. Some were lucky to get it here, some are getting it back in the States or Canada or other parts. Yeah, but the rest of the Mexican population is still not vaccinated. So we are still living a sanitary contingency. So we still have to keep our guard up because we don't want to get in trouble. So what I can guarantee is that we are trying to keep you as safe as we can as we go forward as fast as we can to reopen programs and to start doing different activities. And the other major, I think there are 2 major shifts that we are trying to do with LCS. One, we have the most interesting, greatest professional we could have to do that. It's trying to realize that if LCS wants to grow and if LCS wants to address real community programs, we cannot stay living on our membership revenue. We cannot do that. It's not enough, as Steve pointed out. That would only kind of pay part of a minimum maintenance facility. It's not enough money just to keep the minimum maintenance of our facilities. So we have to start seeing ourselves as a fundraising, non-profit organization. That means we have to raise money in other ways so we can support bigger and more ambitious programs. Yeah. And the other part is trying to really empower the volunteers. Although LCS is a very volunteer-driven organization, we have to recognize, capacitate, accompany, strengthen our volunteers. Not only because they have been left home for a year, but because LCS also has to start to create a more ambitious volunteering program in which we realize that volunteering is not just giving a little of the time that I don't have anything else to do, but it's getting involved in a project that I believe, and I'm going to be driven by it. So you'll become a professional on whatever project you are doing. I don't care. It could be something. It could be a start career for you. It could be the first time you're going to start doing that kind of things. But volunteers had to be being able to understand that they're being part of a program, so they're responsible for it. So they have to be as professional as they can on the service they are given. So what we are trying to reinforce is a service culture in LCS. LCS should be driven by a service culture in which we are always looking how we can help out, how can we reach out one to another, and how we can support each other on what we're trying to do. So those were my 15 minutes I had for the entrance. A lot of things were left on paper. But, well, I wanted to share more than punctual activities, more like the kind of vision and the hopes that I have for LCS. I hope I was clear enough because I could still see myself translating sometimes. So if you have any questions, if you have, I will love to have a conversation and start building from there. Thank you.
Of course, that was 15 Mexican minutes, of course.
I'm Mexican, I told you. We have a lot of culture interaction to work through.
I wasn't here for the rehearsal for the spontaneous questions part. So I think what we're going to do is if you have a question, please raise your hand. I'll come out, I'll risk life and limb coming out into the great, out into you, and you can ask your question direct.